South Korea has stars now, not just one famous name. Not just one player carrying the flag on his shoulders. Son Heung-min still gives Korea Republic a face, a memory, and a final third weapon. Kim Min-jae gives them defensive authority. Lee Kang-in gives them imagination between the lines. Hwang Hee-chan gives them speed, pressure, and direct running. On paper, this is not a weak football nation trying to survive. This is a World Cup team with real names, real experience, and real expectation. And that is exactly why 2026 becomes so interesting. Because the question is no longer, can South Korea compete? They have already proved they belong on the World Cup stage. Korea Republic have qualified for the 2026 FIFA World Cup, with FIFA listing them among the AFC teams that reached the tournament after finishing in the direct qualification places. The harder question is this: can South Korea build a system strong enough for their stars? Because tournament football is cruel. It does not care how many famous players you have. It does not care how emotional the anthem feels. It does not care how dangerous one counterattack looks in isolation. At a World Cup, the teams that survive are usually the teams that can connect their best players to one clear idea. And for South Korea, that is the real story. Not talent, connection. Son can still punish space. But what happens when there is no space? Lee Kang-in can create from tight areas. But can the team give him the right structure around the ball? Kim Min-jae can defend huge spaces. But should one center-back have to solve every broken transition? That is the tension. South Korea's biggest strength has always been intensity. The running, the pressure, the refusal to disappear from games. The feeling that even when the match is slipping away, they still have another sprint, another duel, another moment. But intensity is not the same as control. And in 2026, that difference may define their entire World Cup. Team identity: Korea Republic are not a soft tournament team. Their football identity has often been built around endurance, aggressive pressing, fast wide breaks, emotional resilience, and a collective willingness to suffer without losing shape completely. There is something powerful about that. Some teams want to make football look calm. South Korea often make it feel urgent. They play with a sense that every loose ball matters. Every second ball matters. Every transition could become the moment. That energy can disturb opponents who want rhythm. It can turn comfortable possession into panic. It can make bigger teams feel rushed, but there is also a cost. When a team plays with that much emotion and vertical energy, the spaces between the lines can open. The midfield can become stretched. The backline can be asked to defend situations that should have been prevented earlier. And this is where the stars matter. Son Heung-min is not just a forward. In this team, he is the emotional outlet. He represents the possibility that one run behind the defense can change the entire match. He gives South Korea a direct threat even when they are under pressure. He gives defenders something to fear before the ball even arrives. But Son cannot be the whole plan. That is the trap. If the game becomes too dependent on finding Son in transition, South Korea can become predictable, dangerous. Yes, but predictable. Lee Kang-in changes that picture. He is not just a technical player in this team. He can be the creative connector, the player who receives when the match is messy and tries to turn chaos into rhythm. He can play between lines, combine in pockets, and offer a different route to chance creation. That matters because World Cup opponents will not always give Korea open grass to run into. Sometimes they will sit deeper, sometimes they will slow the game down, sometimes they will force South Korea to prove they can create without a transition. And then there is Kim Min-jae. He is not just a defender. He is the safety system. When Korea press high, when the midfield steps forward, when the fullbacks push on, Kim's recovery, defending, and authority become essential. But that also reveals the danger. If the whole structure depends on one defender cleaning up too much space, the system is already asking a dangerous question. This is why South Korea's 2026 story is so complicated. The names are impressive, but names do not solve structure. Historical journey to understand South Korea in 2026. You have to understand that this is not a team arriving from nowhere. Korea Republic have been part of the World Cup story for decades. Not always as favorites, not always as a team expected to dominate, but as a team that made the tournament feel more uncomfortable for opponents than the rankings suggested. The emotional peak, of course, remains 2002. That tournament changed how the world looked at Korean football. It gave the country a football memory that still lives in every modern generation. The idea that South Korea can make a World Cup feel bigger than logic. But the danger of a memory like that is that it can become a shadow. Every new team is judged against it. Every new squad has to answer the same impossible question. Can you make people feel that again? The truth is, 2026 should not be about repeating 2002. That was a different era, a different football world, a different tournament context. The modern question is not whether South Korea can recreate the past. It is whether they can build something sustainable for the present. And in many ways, this generation has more individual quality than the old stereotype allows. Son Heung-min became a global-level attacking reference. Kim Min-jae became the type of defender elite teams build around. Lee Kang-in brought a technical profile that feels different from the older image of Korean football as only hard-running and intense. That evolution matters, because South Korea are not just trying to be brave anymore. They are trying to be complete. But completion is the hardest part in international football. Clubs train every day, national teams borrow time. They build ideas in short camps, short windows, short tournaments. That makes chemistry fragile. A team can have a world-class outlet, a high-level center back, and a gifted creator, and still look disconnected if the distances are wrong. That is the invisible problem, not the player names. The space between them, and this is where the story becomes more tactical than emotional. Road to 2026 qualification gives South Korea the platform, but it does not answer the deeper question. Getting to the World Cup proves consistency. Going deep at the World Cup requires clarity. Those are not the same thing. A team can qualify because it has enough quality across a long campaign. But in a knockout-style tournament environment, one bad spacing issue, one uncontrolled transition, one mistake in build-up, one isolated defender, that can change everything. For South Korea, 2026 is not just another appearance. It is a test of maturity. Can they arrive with a structure that does not depend on one emotional surge? Can they control parts of the game when the opponent drops off and refuses to give Son space? Can they protect Kim Min-jae from being dragged into constant emergency defending? Can they make Lee Kang-in central to the rhythm without slowing the team so much that their transition threat disappears? That is the balance, and balance is not a small detail. It is the difference between looking dangerous for 10 minutes and being dangerous for 90. The optimistic view is clear. South Korea have enough profiles to hurt different types of opponents. Against a team that pushes high, Son's movement behind the line can be devastating. Hwang Hee-chan can attack space, press defenders, and turn loose balls into dangerous moments. Lee Kang-in can punish teams that leave pockets open. Kim Min-jae can defend forward and allow the team to be brave. But here's where things get interesting. Those same strengths can create different problems. If South Korea press too aggressively, they can leave space behind midfield. If they attack too directly, Lee Kang-in may become disconnected from the game. If they ask Son to stretch the pitch constantly, they may lose his quality closer to goal. If they rely on Kim Min-jae to win every defensive race, they are living dangerously. This is why the system matters. Not because systems replace stars, because systems protect stars from having to do everything. Tactical DNA. South Korea's tactical identity begins with energy. They want to make opponents uncomfortable. They want to press. They want to contest second balls. They want the match to feel alive. That is valuable in tournament football because intensity can create chaos, and chaos gives underdogs, outsiders, and transition teams a way into games. But Korea Republic are not just an underdog anymore. With players like Son, Kim, Lee Kang-in, and Hwang, the expectation becomes different. The system cannot only be about disruption, it also has to create repeatable patterns. In build-up, the key question is, can they move the ball through pressure without turning every possession into a risk? If the center-backs are forced into rushed passes, the midfield receives with pressure already on their back. If the full-backs push too early, the passing lanes behind them become vulnerable. If the front line stays too high, the team can become stretched vertically. This is where Lee Kang-in's role becomes important. Lee Kang-in is not just a player who can produce a final pass. He can change the temperature of the game. He can receive in pockets, draw pressure, turn, combine, and give South Korea a way to breathe. But to do that, he needs options near him. A creator without support becomes a target. A technical player isolated between two defensive lines can be pressed from both sides. So Korea need runners around him, but not just random runners. They need coordinated movement. One player comes short. One player threatens behind. One fullback holds width. One midfielder protects the counter. Simple on paper, very difficult in real tournament rhythm. Pressing is another major part of the story. When South Korea press well, they can look fearless. The front line jumps, the midfield squeezes, and the back line steps forward. That creates the emotional image people associate with Korean football: brave, fast, relentless. But pressing is only powerful when the team is connected. If the first line goes and the midfield does not follow, opponents play through the gap. If the midfield jumps and the defense does not hold the right distance, the space behind opens. If the fullbacks step forward without cover, one switch of play can turn pressure into panic. And that is where Kim Min-jae becomes both a strength and a warning sign. His recovery defending allows South Korea to play higher. His aggression can kill counterattacks before they grow. His presence gives the team permission to be bold. But one elite defender should not become the entire insurance policy. That sounds promising, but tournament football is different. The best teams do not just punish weak defenders. They punish weak spacing. So for South Korea, the defensive question is not only how good is Kim Min-jae, it is how often does the system force him to solve problems alone. Key players, key role. Son Heung-min is not just a forward. In this team, he is the legacy outlet. That sounds simple, but it is actually a complex role because Son gives South Korea three things at once: emotional authority, transition speed, and finishing threat. When Korea are under pressure, he can become the pass that releases the team. When the opponent pushes too high, he can become the run that changes the pitch. When the game feels heavy, he can become the player everyone looks toward. But that is also the problem. If every difficult moment becomes find Son, then the system becomes too easy to read. The best version of South Korea does not use Son as the whole attack. It uses him as the final acceleration after the team has already created the conditions for him to hurt opponents. That means the midfield has to connect. The wide players have to occupy defenders. The striker has to pin center-backs. Lee Kang-in has to attract pressure. And Son has to receive at the right time, not just as a desperate escape, because there is a difference between giving Son space and asking Son to invent space. One is structure, the other is survival. Lee Kang-in is not just a creative midfielder. In this team, he is the rhythm changer. South Korea's traditional strength has often been vertical energy. Run, press, attack the next space. But Lee Kang-in gives them something more patient. He can slow a moment down without killing the attack. He can draw defenders toward him and release the ball into a better angle. That is important because World Cup matches rarely give you the same type of game twice. Some opponents will press high, some will defend deep. Some will invite Korea to cross, some will block the center. Some will turn the game into a physical battle. Lee Kang-in can help South Korea answer more than one question. But he also creates a tactical decision. Where do you place him so that his talent affects the game most? If he is too wide, he may be far from the central rhythm. If he is too central, he may need protection around him. If he drops too deep, Korea may lose creativity near the box. If he stays too high, he may not touch the ball enough. This is the kind of detail that separates a team with good players from a team with a clear plan. Kim Min-jae is not just a center back in this team, he is the defensive anchor. He changes how brave South Korea can be. A defender with recovery pace, strength, and authority allows the team to hold a higher line and take more risks in the press. He can step into duels, he can defend space. He can give the rest of the team confidence. But there is a hidden danger in having a defender this good. Sometimes, teams start using greatness as a shortcut. They press with one extra player because they trust him to clean up. They push the fullbacks higher because they trust him to cover. They leave midfield gaps because they trust him to win the race. That may work in one match, it may work against certain opponents. But at the World Cup, the margin is thinner. If South Korea want to be more than dangerous, Kim Min-jae cannot simply be the emergency button. He has to be the center of a protected defensive structure. Hwang Hee-chan is not just a runner. In this team, he is the pressing runner. He brings directness. He attacks space. He can turn a half clearance into a counterattack. He can press center backs with intensity and force rush decisions. That type of player matters because South Korea's best moments often come when the game becomes unstable. But again, the word is balance. If Hwang's running is connected to the team press, it becomes a weapon. If it is isolated, it becomes wasted energy. If he presses alone, the opponent plays around him. If he runs without support, he receives with no passing options. The same action can be powerful or pointless, depending on the structure behind it. And then there is Lee Jae-sung. He may not always be the most dramatic name in the conversation, but players like this often decide whether a national team actually works. Lee Jae-sung can be the system link, the player who understands when to press, when to cover, when to arrive between lines, when to help the fullback, when to let the star player stay higher. These roles do not always become thumbnails, but they become tournament football, because in a World Cup, not every decisive contribution is a goal or an assist. Sometimes it is the player who closes the passing lane that prevents the counterattack. Sometimes it is the midfielder who takes one touch to connect the team. Sometimes it is the worker who allows the star to stay dangerous. This is the part people often miss. A team with stars still needs glue. Without it, the names become separated. Son waiting for service. Lee Kang-in looking for options. Kim Min-jae defending broken spaces. Hwang running into channels that no one else has occupied. With it, the picture changes. The stars stop looking like separate individuals. They start looking like parts of one idea. Main weakness: South Korea's biggest weakness is not a lack of effort. It is not a lack of pride. It is not even a lack of star quality. The biggest concern is control. Can they control the middle of the pitch when the game slows down? Can they keep the team compact when they attack? Can they create chances without needing a fast break? Can they press without opening the exact spaces the opponent wants to attack? This is the tactical weakness that could decide their 2026 story. Because against certain opponents, Korea's speed and energy will be enough to create danger. They will win duels, they will press mistakes, they will break into space. Son will get moments. Hwang will create chaos. Lee Kang-in will find passes. Kim Min-jae will win defensive battles. But against the best tournament teams, chaos is not always available. Elite opponents can remove transition. They can slow the tempo. They can keep possession away from Korea's dangerous players. They can make Son receive with his back to goal instead of running behind. They can block Lee Kang-in's passing lanes. They can drag Kim Min-jae into wide zones and attack the space he leaves. That is why midfield control matters, not possession for possession's sake. Control, the ability to decide when to speed the game up and when to pause. The ability to keep enough players behind the ball while still attacking. The ability to build attacks that do not immediately expose the defense. If South Korea cannot solve that, their matches may become too emotional. And emotional matches are dangerous. They can produce miracles. They can also produce collapse. The other concern is the striker question. South Korea have attacking weapons, but the center-forward role still matters deeply. In tournament football, you need someone who can occupy center-backs, attack crosses, create space for runners, and give the team a reference when pressure arrives. If the striker pins defenders, Son and Hwang can attack better spaces. Lee Kang-in gets clearer lanes. The midfield has a target to connect with. If the striker becomes disconnected, Korea can look like a team with talented pieces but no fixed point. That does not mean the answer has to be one specific player right now. It means the role must be clear: box presence, pressing trigger, link option, space creator. Without that, South Korea risks becoming too dependent on moments from wide and half-space players. And at a World Cup, dependence is dangerous. World Cup 2026 outlook. So what should we expect from South Korea in 2026? The honest answer is uncertainty, and that is what makes them interesting. They are not a team you can dismiss. The talent is real. The experience is real. The emotional force is real. Their World Cup presence is not accidental, but they are also not a team that can rely on reputation alone. Their ceiling depends on connection. If Son Heung-min remains the only